Hey guys, Dave here from 3dmybusiness.com. So today's tutorial is really centered around After Effects. It's not about character creation, it's not about 3D programs like Cinema 4D where I created the character here, Charlie. It's really centered around After Effects, and as the title probably suggests, it's about positional tracking. So I'm going to assume you've got your 3D render from your program of choice, and let's get cracking here. So the first thing we're going to need for a great track is actually a render from our 3D program. Now, you might be surprised by this because if you're familiar with After Effects, you probably know that After Effects has a tracking facility inside of it. If we come up here to Window, you can bring up the tracker. And this is a pretty good tool. I haven't used it a lot, but I found it's good for text and stuff. You've probably seen it on a lot of these YouTube videos, perhaps if you watch some gadget YouTubers as well, like MKBHD, you might have seen it there with the camera moving in the 3D space and then the text kind of staying in position relative to what's going on. But this isn't actually very good in my experience for positional tracking in this circumstance with our character here, because we're going to be wanting to use some 3D dimensions, not only 2D. So if you're using text, even in 3D space, it's going to be pretty good for that. But in this case, we're actually going to be wanting to have a subtle 3D rotational effect on the logo as Charlie's chest kind of rotates left and right here. So even though this video is really exclusively about After Effects, I'm probably going to edit in a little later some Cinema 4D just to show you how we go about creating the tracking render for our character. So if we switch on our character, switch on our tracker here for Charlie, you can see we've got this yellow kind of dot here. Again, as I say, I'll probably edit in how this was made or how this was set up in Cinema 4D earlier. It's probably quite a similar process inside of whatever 3D program you use. What I've also done is I've actually added on a fill, which you can do in Effects and Presets. Just type in fill if you can't see Effects and Presets, Window, Effects and Presets, just there. And I've just made it yellow so it really jumps out. So now that we've got our track layer here, we've got a really strong foundation to create an accurate track for the logo. As you can see here, obviously the track is directly where we're going to want the logo to be. So what do we do next? Well, the way I've organised this project, and this project is available, by the way, at 3My Business, which you can get through the link probably below this video. We've actually got 3 logo placeholder compositions here, or pre-compositions, which you can see in the top level here. So what we're going to do first is we're actually going to open the first one here, number 1, and you can see we've just got this black box. Well, what's going on here? Well, basically what's happened is I've created an additional tracker the same size as the rendered track video that we've got in here from earlier, and we're essentially going to attach this shape layer in After Effects to this yellow track here. So I'm going to show you how I went about that, and then we're going to actually come back to this pre-comp a little later just to save time. So let's switch that off. I'm going to ensure rather that I have no layers selected here. I'm going to come up to my rectangle tool, just like that. I'm just going to draw out a square. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. I'm going to make it black here. I'm just going to use this Move Anchor Point tool, which is a free download, a free extension for After Effects, just to move the anchor point to the center, because I'm a little OCD and that's annoying me. So what we can do now is actually resize it. So if we select our layer here, we'll tap S for scale. We're going to click off the synchronize here, or I guess that will constrain proportions. We're going to disable that, and now we're able to actually change the 2 values here, the left and right and the top and bottom. So I'm going to just zoom in a little bit here. I'm going to press S on the layer. I might be going a little quick here. Hopefully you're able to stick up with me here, but basically, of course you can rewind and pause and whatever else you need to do as you're watching this video. I like to make these tutorials quick because when it's me watching tutorials of other people, of which I've watched hundreds and hundreds, I like fast tutorials. Otherwise it's easy to lose concentration. So let's keep up the pace here. I'm going to move this over, position. I'm going to move it up. We're just going to be really rough here. When you do yours, obviously you can be as careful as you like. We're just going to bring that down like that and like that. I'm going to show you how to rotate and how to refine the positioning later. What I actually did for the actual project of Charlie here, of which this is just a tutorial, but this is actually an entire project. What I did for the project itself is I actually let me just position this here. I actually had a little bit of the outside of the rendered yellow track you can see here showing just beyond the black shape layer we've got. So if I just scale this down a little bit more here, you can see the edges there. Let's just increase the size there. Again, this isn't going to be perfect. Let's just make that 10.4. Let's make it 10.5. Let's make that 10.5. Let's reposition this here. So basically it's not a perfectly aligned size, it's just a little bit smaller, but it just allows us to essentially see this yellow line. When we're playing the file later, when we're playing the sequence, we can see the outside line here, and as long as this is roughly 1, 2, 3 pixels out, of course you can be as careful as you like, you can be as accurate as you like, but as long as this is 1, 2, 3 pixels out each side of the black square here, then you're getting an accurate track. And in addition, a little later we'll throw in the rotation as well, and a few other bits and pieces. So that's essentially what it is in a nutshell. What I'm going to do now is actually delete the shape layer because we did this earlier. So we're going to come out here, let's go to fit. So we've got our first logo placeholder that we've now finished. I'm opening up logo placeholder 2, which is going to be opened here at the outset when you open the project, and you can see that it's already in place. Now ignore this square around here. This is a mask which we'll get to a bit later. For now we're focusing on what's going on in here. So let's select our layer and let's open it here. Now what we're going to do is we actually want really kind of granular control of how this is positioned. This isn't perfectly set up here. I've still got a little bit more work to do here. I'm going to optimize that a little later. But essentially what we're going to be doing is attaching this black square to a null. So let's do that now before things get a little bit all too off topic. So what we're going to do is we're going to create this tracker null, which you can already see here. Just for example purposes, I'll throw in what we need, which is the adjustment layer. So new adjustment layer, and as you can see, you get this white layer here with this little icon already pre-selected. So this adjustment layer, I renamed mine to tracker null. What I might be inclined to do actually is reveal that layer source in the project, bring it up here and change the name here, because then it changes it project wide. If you change the name in the timeline, then it's only going to change it here and it won't change it in the entire project, which we don't want. So what we would do here is just type in tracker null however you want, and then Bob is your uncle. So I'm actually going to delete that because we already have our tracker null, and we've got that selected there. It doesn't need to be 3D like our logo placeholders. So with now that in place, we're going to come to the first keyframe here, and I'm actually going to just for a second, let's unparent that. So it's basically in the situation that you're going to be in now. If we play this, you can see that the the square, there's some other effects going on there we're going to get to a bit later. You can see it's moving a little bit, that's turbulent displacement, but essentially it's not moving with the placeholder. So what's going on? Well, what you need to do is select your pre-composition, parent it using this tool here, just drag it to the tracker null, and then we're going to keyframe the tracker null. Now, your tracker null at the moment, it's not going to have any of these keyframes. If you've used the tracking tool within After Effects before, you probably recognize this as the tool will automatically lay a keyframe every single frame, so it can look a little bit busy. This is only 1 second, so it's not looking too overwhelming. But essentially what you're going to have right now is nothing going on. So what we're going to do is we're going to assume that your black shape layer is still in the same position on frame 1, which is roughly in line with where we want it, at least on a two-dimensional kind of context. We're actually going to throw some 3 dimensions into it here now as well. So you can see tracker null. We're going to press P, if you haven't already, to open up the position. This is how we're going to edit the 2D aspects of the positioning. We're actually going to click on logo placeholder effects as well, and we're going to open this up with rotation, and you can see that there's already some keyframes here. Now, another little bit of advice here: if you are struggling to find out the optimal kind of position this needs to be, for example, the arrow, now that the chest is facing to the right here a little bit, the arrow really needs to be facing right as well. If you're kind of struggling with orientating it, you can click on the pre-composition, you can click Command or Control Shift and H, and you're going to see the arrow pop up just like that, all these other elements for what's been edited on the layer, or in this case the pre-composition. That's just going to help us really determine what kind of direction it needs to be. So you can see the blue arrow there for the Z-axis. It doesn't need to be there, we can see that, but ideally it needs to be pointing a little bit to our right there, that we can see. Just to position it, you can see it's already in position for this project, which is -10 there on the Y rotation. You can see the arrow just to the right there. You can't really see it because of the black square, but you can just make out the blue arrow there. So there we can see it's 10 degrees, -10 degrees on the Y rotation. So what you're seeing here is really the kind of the framework of how we position our square. So what I might do now, you can see also that there's a little bit more yellow here sticking out the left and the right than the top and the bottom. It doesn't need to be absolutely perfect, but if you have the time, and I'll have the time a little later, you can really perfect this and spend a lot of time, spend as much time as you want really, just getting the positioning that you want. So make sure, you know, as always, you're actually laying keyframes as you're going along. If it's the first keyframe, you're probably going to need to actually click the stopwatch here and just go along and just with each frame just move it and optimize it and refine it. So you can see I've done that here earlier. I probably will do another pass through, but you can see that pretty much every time it's always where it needs to be. I mean, just for a second, because I've got some additional effects here, because this is nearly the finished article, I'm actually going to switch off. You can see that the black square isn't perfectly square. Well, why is that? It's because we've got some effects here on our layer. In fact, let's do it here. We'll get rid of that just for the second, and you can see it's a little bit more square there. We're going to get onto the effects in the logo placeholder pre-composition number 3, so just one step at a time. Let's come back to our second comp here, and let's zoom in, and we can see that as I've already done most of this work here, you can see it's pretty much where we want it to be on each frame of the animation. You might want to, you know, come here and say, okay, well, it needs to move a little bit to the left there. You know, you might have to, if you really want granular control, you might have to refrain from using the mouse and actually say, okay, 9.3.2. Well, let's do, you know, 9.3. A minute, where are we here? 935.2, so let's say 933.8 or whatever it is, just to get that granular control, because with the mouse it tends to be quite large movements. So that's pretty cool. That's it in a nutshell. We just want to do that for every frame that we've got in our animation, and then we're ready to move on to the next step. Okay, so we've got our black shape layer pretty much in sync with our yellow render tracking point, and we're now actually ready to throw in our logo, which is kind of, the step that we're really working towards. So let's get to that now. Let's stop this animation, let's switch this off. This third layer, composition rather, is actually the finished article, so I'm going to undo some of the work in here just so you can see how it's actually working. So if we play this, at this point we're ready to switch off our tracker, so that yellow point. We're going to go into the loop placeholder number 3. You're not going to have any of these layers in here, of course, so what we're actually going to do is let's switch them off. In fact, the text placeholder, the tracker placeholder rather, can stay there. So presumably you've already got this inside of your composition here from earlier. What we can now do is actually come to our assets here. We're going to add in, first of all, the logo. So we've got your logo here. In this project it's 500 squared. For the logo placeholder, so sure enough the logo is just 500 by 500, just your logo here, a little bit meta. So after that we're just going to switch this off. Now looking at this you can see just additionally you might want to throw on a fill here, which you can do up here in Effects and Presets, just fill and then make it any colour you want. In this case we actually want it to be white, so that's all good. So we've got our logo here, but you can actually see it's just perfectly 2D. It's like it's on a wall, right? And there's no deformation or there's no changes there. And on a t-shirt, of course, there's going to be a little bit of dynamism there, there's going to be a little bit of movement, and it's not going to be perfectly flat. In fact, if we come back here, we can see here are the effects, which we're going to get to a little later. If we play this, you can see by default it's just going to be completely flat, right? And that's not what we want to see because it's not very realistic. I mean, it might be okay for just a quick video, but it's not really ideal, is it? So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go back. You can see once the effects have been applied, there's a bit of a change here. First of all though, before we get to those two effects, we're going to come in here and we're going to make some other little additions just to make it a little bit extra special. So first of all, we're going to come to our project panel and we're going to come to texture pixabay.com. Now I've put that domain there because clearly enough I actually got this image from there. But why I got it from there is more interesting. Pixabay.com is a brilliant website I only came across about 3 months ago, and it's a website where all of their photos are essentially CC0, which means there's no copyright, so you can use them in your commercial projects with no reference to them. You can leave a URL, kind of TXT or whatever, in the project just for the kind of the tip of the hat to them to say thank you, but you're not required to, right? You're not going to have people chasing you if you use this in a commercial project. So that's why I went to pixabay.com. I think I typed in like texture gene or something. It's nothing too special. If we come to reveal in Finder, let's have a look at this. It's just like a bog standard texture here, just a gene thing. Nothing too fancy, but it does the trick. So first of all here, what we're going to do is we're going to, on the texture pixabay.com layer, we're going to select mode and we're going to choose overlay, and then for track matte we're going to choose alpha matte, and you can see it's kind of got this effect where the text is taken on the properties of the texture. Okay, well once we've done that, what we're going to want to do is actually open up opacity properties here, and we're going to want to make the logo 50 and then the texture about 40, something like that. And so you've got this like transparency effect. The texture isn't too strong, but when you look at it on your on your top layer here, it should look a little bit more inviting. What we're going to do actually is we'll come back here. Let's throw on a fill and let's make it white, like so. Let's switch it back on. That would help. And that's it. That's a lot better. Okay, so you've got your logo now. It's kind of showing up. It might be a little bit too transparent for you. You know, it's not exactly white, but you know, just play around with the settings really and figure out what's going to be best for you. Depending on how kind of solid your logo is going to dictate how visible the texture is. The texture doesn't want to be something that is too jumpy outy. You know, the rest of the shirt in this case at least isn't textured. It's just something that adds a nice subtle effect, you know, just to kind of make it that much more premium. As a kind of a feel to the video. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that, but now we're actually going to get on to how this logo is deformed from the original square. So let's go back. I showed you this earlier, of course, but one more time, let's delete these two effects and then see what we've got. We've got this perfect square. Of course, it's not really going to be working for us, given that a t-shirt is very flexible and quite rounded. So I'm going to explain now what effects I've used and why I've used these effects. So first of all, optics compensation. Just a caveat, these effects are included with After Effects, at least in CC. I'm not entirely sure about the others. I assume they're included in CS6 and whatnot. But these aren't additional you know, expenses or what have you, so you should be fine. Now, first of all, optics compensation. Why did I use that? Well, I didn't actually know this existed, to be honest, when I came to do this job, this project. What I knew I wanted was kind of that fisheye lens effect, where you've got the lens, it's so kind of convex, I guess, that it looks like everything's very round. Hence fisheye, right? So that's the effect I wanted, because t-shirts aren't flat. They're kind of, you know, you've got the point closest towards the camera here, and then it kind of goes round towards the character's back. So I thought a subtle fisheye effect might just give you that, or convey that idea that it's actually on a t-shirt. So I added that, and I gave it a value of 50 there. Again, you can download this project for free, so you can check out the values, etc. But that's what I worked out there, and I think that looks a little bit better than what it did before. One more time, we'll delete it. That's the original, and that's what we have now. And this will work for any logo that you put in the pre-composition folder. Now, for the second effect, I actually used Turbulent Displace, which is a bit more commonly used in After Effects. If you've been using it, you know, for a few years, you may have come across Turbulent Displace. It essentially introduces kind of a kinetic energy to whatever it's applied to. It can be used for other things like cloud and fog and all kinds of things. It's a really flexible effect. But anyway, in this scenario, I use it to add a little bit of movement to the logo. So of course, when people are moving, the t-shirt or clothes are moving, and necessarily anything printed on the clothes is also moving. So I didn't want to go crazy for this, you know. I hate those when you see computer games and the hair dynamics and they overdo it just because it's almost as if they're saying, yeah, this is awesome, so we've like done it 200%, and it gets to the point where it's just completely unrealistic and absurd. So the point is, I just wanted to keep it subtle, just something that you may not even be able to realize it. Maybe it's just an OCD thing where only I will realize it. Can you just see, like, perhaps there's just a little bit of movement, a little bit of kind of a judder effect to the logo as it's going round. If we delete this just for a second, you can see that it just shifted there. There's no movement there. Again, this isn't something that you're probably going to need unless you're OCD like me. Let's get it back on. If you're looking at the position, right now we'll put the effect back on, and you can see it just gives it a bit more of a change there. So what's actually going on here? Well, if we open up the layer here, you see Turbulent Displace. I've just animated the or keyframed the size here. So at the beginning it's 50, nothing special, it's just experimentation. It goes up to 100 and then it comes back down to 50. What does this do? Well, just a little bit, it just gives it a little shudder or a little judder. right? So that in combination with the optics compensation, I just think it just makes it look a little bit better. So that's it in a nutshell. That's how to add a logo onto a 3D character in After Effects. Now, there is one more thing we're going to do here. I wasn't going to do this actually, but since I've been making this tutorial, I've realised that it's something that's pretty, you know, unremovable, if you like, from the tutorial, and that is the masking here, the masking layer that we're seeing. So how does this work? Well, basically, I want this to be nice and quick, so we're not going to go into anything special. But first of all, we'll show what is actually going on here. So on the first frame, you can see that the finger comes, it basically intercepts with the logo. And if you don't have a mask, you're going to see the logo in front of the hand. Now, that's obviously not ideal. And to be honest, I wouldn't have needed to do this had I not been so crazy as to, you know, or stupid as to have the hand actually intercept with the logo there. But to be honest, this is something that can happen in, you know, many different ways, not just a hand arbitrarily coming up in front of the logo, but something, you know, comes in front, or whatever the situation is, you know. So I think it's probably going to be a beneficial thing to share with people who are new to this. So let's get into this. Let's trial this out. So let's click on our layer that has the logo within it. What we're going to do, we're going to come back up to the rectangle tool. This actually becomes something different when we have a layer selected. It becomes the masking tool. Okay, so if we come here now, we'll zoom in, we're just going to draw a square over our logo, and you can see that anything inside of this mask, or this rectangle here, is actually going to be in view. Anything outside of it is not going to be in view. Okay, so very simply, with the first frame selected, we're going to come to mask. We're going to mask the path initially so that we retain the shape, and so that when we make, you know, different shapes over different frames, everything essentially stays in place on each frame. And then we're going to play around here. I'm going to tap G on the keyboard to bring up the pen tool. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to add in additional points for our mask where necessary. Now, this is going to hopefully be a little clearer as to how this is working in a second as I do this, but the key point is you want to use as many additional points as possible, otherwise it gets really, really busy and really complex. So essentially what we're going to do, let's come down here. Feather, you probably don't want feather, just make sure it's 0. The more feather you have, the more kind of blurry you get. It might be useful in your scenario, you've just got to experiment with it. I generally prefer not to use it. We're going to come across there. I'm going to just really simply position these where they need to be, where the logo is, you know, realistically hidden. Let's add an additional point here. Let's come back there, and then let's take that off. Let's bring this up here. You might want to add another point up there just to bring it right out. So that's the first one done. If you've got a keyframe for the mask path, then that shape is going to be retained. We'll come to the next one. We'll zoom in. Our points that we added earlier are you know, still here, so we can just move those. And this is the reason why you don't want to use too many, because as you go through the frames, all of these keyframes, all of these points on the mask are still here, right? So we're going to grab that one. We're going to grab that one. You don't want to be getting to the point where, you know, you've got to the 15th frame and you have to move, you know, 20 points that you don't need to use. So we're going to move that down there. This isn't the best logo to demonstrate this because there's a lot of transparency, but essentially what you want to do is come around here, go up there just to outside of the logo, add another point, remember G for the pen tool, and then we'll bring it down outside of the logo. Placeholder there. We'll bring this up just like this. Keyframes are automatically positioned now, and then it's rinse and repeat. It really is as simple as that. Sometimes you might need to add another point for the mask, but apart from that, It really is as simple as this. Just one more tip here. Once you get to the point where the hand, in this case, or the object has actually left the building, as it were, you want to add in another keyframe whereby the mask and all the points have actually been removed. Whoops. So sometimes it might deselect like that. What I do is just tap V, I click off, and then I click back on. And then if you need the pen tool, you can hit G again. And we'll just move these points out like this, because now for the rest of the animation, let's say that there's no more intercepting elements like the hand, well, now it's going to remain where we want it. Okay, so that's masking in a nutshell. And that's it. I hope it was helpful. I hope I didn't blabber on too much. I hope it didn't go on for too long. Don't forget to subscribe if you liked it here on YouTube. Let me know what you thought below, and please check out my website 3dmybusiness.com for more training and toolkits. Thank you.